1. Introduction. RAWSEP view. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable. Wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the Eco-Design Wood Stove, and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP view. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.
Hi, my name is Lily. Andrew gave you the intro to residents against wood smoke emission particulates and their concern for air pollution from indoor residential wood burning. Residents against wood smoke emission particulates, or RAWSEP, would like every near neighbor of an indoor residential wood burner whose wood smoke enters their yards and sickens the near neighbors to have a purple air PM 2.5 monitor hanging from the eaves of their home to measure the level of PM 2.5 entering their yards. That measurement of air pollution should be used as evidence of unnecessary air pollution, and each indoor residential wood burner should be shut down based on that evidence, one indoor residential wood burner at a time if necessary. The presentation by Andrew ended at 2 minutes 5 seconds. The same presentation by Emma starts at 2 minutes 3 seconds before the end of this podcast. So I am Lily, your timekeeper, and you can start the next podcast at 2 minutes 5 seconds in if you would not like to see the presentation by Andrew a second time. This presentation by me, Lily, ends at 5 minutes in. What you will see in the main content of this RAWSEP podcast will be news about air pollution from indoor residential wood burning and how that air pollution is being combated by ordinary people just like you who are unfortunately near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners at this time. There will also be news about unnecessary and highly polluting use of wood as fuel in industrial wood burners and preventable air pollution from wood burning wildfires. There will also be news about air pollution from PM 2.5 from gas-powered cars. There will also be news about airborne diseases which are also preventable with vaccines such as COVID-19 and measles and whooping cough, to name just a few. In 2025, residents against wood smoke emission particulates is also concerned with combating the Trump destruction of government funding for programs which protect human health through the Department of Health and Human Services, and Trump destruction of programs which fund the science and medical research plan to protect human health from preventable illnesses. Protecting human health is a patriotic act, and our defense against enemies is weakened if we are not as healthy as we can be. Heat pump rebates are now offered by the federal government, distributed through the eligible United States, are available in 2025 and are the best, cleanest, and now cheapest alternative to indoor residential wood burning if that burning is actually done to purportedly save money. Wind and solar as sources of the electricity that powers heat pumps and electric cars is also cheaper than burning wood. The adverse health effects that are caused by indoor residential wood burning also come at a cost to near neighbors, both in shortening and ending their lives and in actual hospital, clinic, and funeral costs. Instead of being compensated monetarily, near neighbors should instead be able to achieve immediate relief by stopping indoor residential wood burning in their hyper-localized neighborhoods, which relief readings from purple air PM 2.5 monitors used as evidence of air pollution will help them achieve. Welcome to news about hopeful scientific and medical achievements that will also help us achieve the goal of clean air to breathe.
Webisode 57DHXWXXA September 2, 2025 View of RFK Junior versus Vaccines from an Epidemiologist. In Webisode 57DHXWXXA 1, A Friendly Neighborhood, Epidemiologist 2 quoting Jack White in a Facebook post, 3 headlines main content. 1. A Friendly Neighborhood, Epidemiologist excerpt edited by RAWSEP residents against would smoke emission particulates of 501c3 nonprofit organization Neighbor Tuesday. Why the CDC is at a crossroads yesterday September 1st. 9 former CDC directors and leaders wrote an essay in the New York Times titled We Ran the CDC Kennedy is endangering the health of every American last week. I along with tons of other public health people I respect sounded the alarm over the ousting of CDC Director Doctor Monarez and the resignation of 4 key leaders. I articulated how this was not normal at all. In fact, it is as opposite as you can get. So, to read the NYT essay from 9 former CDC directors over 50 plus years from every president since Carter should be a wake-up call to all of us. The leaders served during both Democrat and Republican presidencies. Some were deeply religious, while others were not. Some leaned right while others leaned left. I say that to tell you how pivotal and historical this statement is from them, and that they certainly did not agree on everything, but they do agree on this, that public health is under attack, and enough is enough. They are heroes in my field, from smallpox eradication to HIV reduction efforts. Let me tell you about one of them that you have probably heard of too. Dr. William Foege served as CDC Director from 1977 to 1983 under Presidents Carter and Reagan. If his name sounds familiar to you, it might be because he is largely credited at developing the strategy to eradicate smallpox globally. Smallpox would be the first infectious disease to be eradicated in human history. From a global health standpoint, he also played a key role in helping low-income countries get immunizations and develop strategies to eliminate polio, measles, and guinea worm disease. Most of us in public health learned about the Dr. Foege story, starting in his medical work in Nigeria to the CDC leadership. He is such a legend. This 1980 photograph taken at the Centers for Disease Control CDC depicted 3 former directors of the Global Smallpox Eradication Program as they read the good news that smallpox had been eradicated on a global scale. From left to right were Dr. J Donald Millar, who was director from 1966 to 1970, Doctor William H Foege, who was director from 1970 to 1973, and Dr. J Michael Lane, who was director from 1973 to 1981. In the NYT essay, they including Dr. Foege, who is 89 years old, denounced the RFK Junior firing of thousands of federal health workers, including Dr. Monarez, and point out the ramifications of doing so would weaken our programs for cancer, stroke, heart attacks, measles, etc., and how the effect will not be equal, but will be felt more by our low-income neighbors already struggling with health access. Then they said they had a message for the rest of us, and that message was to rally, that this was the time to do, so they called on medical groups, philanthropists, physicians, and scientists, Congress to do so. Here is the part that got me the most. They asked each of us to do what public health does best, and that is loving our neighbors. Well, they said it differently, but it is the same sentiment, and they are right. Public health has always been about our neighbors. I know we might feel like we cannot do much about all of this, but I promise that your activism works. Keep speaking up, keep sharing these posts along with other posts saying the same thing. Use the hashtag USA and Not RFK March Write. Your senator and representatives here is a great guide on how to find contact information and what to say. Share an open letter. America wake up. Restag post res hair. Help us get the word out that science is worth defending. Like my friend said in the open letter, this is an SOS. It is not hyperbole. We're saying the sky is falling. This is an SOS in solidarity. Emily 2 quoting Jack White in a Facebook post by Robert Teachman, August 21st, 2025. Excerpt edited by RAWSEP residents against would smoke emission particulates of 501c3 nonprofit organization. The White House melts down and attacks music legend Jack White after he insults the Trump. Disgusting and vulgar redecoration of the White House. Jack White is a washed up, has been loser posting drivel on social media because he clearly has ample time on his hands due to his stalled career. Claimed White House spokesman Stephen Chung, it is apparent White has been masquerading as a real artist because he fails to appreciate and quite frankly disrespects the splendor and significance of the Oval Office inside of the House of the People. Chung added, this is the response of Jack. Listen, I am an artist and not a politician, so I am in no need to give my answer or opinion on anything if I am not inspired or compelled. But how funny that it was not me calling out the Trump blatant fascist manipulation of government, his Gestapo IC tactics, his racist remarks about Latinos, Native Americans, etc., his ridiculous wall construction, his attacks on the disabled, his attempted coup and mob insurrection and destruction of the sacred halls of Congress, his disparaging sexist and pedophilic remarks about women, his obvious attempts at distraction about being a close personal friend of Jeffrey Epstein and his inclusion in the Epstein files, his ignorance of the dying children in Sudan, Gaza, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo, his lack of empathy for military veterans and those struggling with poverty, his attempts to dismantle healthcare, his obvious wimpy, empathetic kowtowing to the dictators Putin and Kim Jong-un, his Nazi-like rallies, his attempts to sell merchandise and products like Goya beans through the office of the president, his fake gunshot to the ear that he showed no medical records or photographs of, his constant lying to the American people, etc., etc., etc. No, it was not me calling out any of that. It was the blank decor of the Oval Office remarks I made that got them to respond with insults. He continued, how petty and pathetic and thin-skinned could this administration get? Masquerading as a real artist? Thank you for giving me my tombstone engraving. Well, here is my opinion. Trump is masquerading as a human being. He is masquerading as a Christian, as a leader, as a person with actual empathy. He wrote, he has been masquerading as a businessman for decades, as nothing he is involved in has prospered except by using the money of other people to find loophole after loophole and grift after grift. His staff of professional liar toadies like Stephen Chung and Caroline Levitt have been covering up and masking his fascism as patriotism and fomenting hatred and division in this country on a daily basis. White went on, and I have ample time on my hands. That orange grifter has spent more taxpayer money cheating at golf than helping anyone in the country improve anything. There is no progress with him, only smoke and mirrors and tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy. So mega folk, enjoy your concrete paving over of the Rose Garden, your $200 million ballroom in the White House, and your gaudy-ass gold spray painted trinkets from Home Depot, cause he is not spending any money on helping you unless you fit into his white supremacist country club rich idiot agenda. Wow, he hates who you hate. Good for you. Be proud of yourselves. How Christian of you all. The only way you can support this con man is because you are a victim of the two-party system and you defend your guy no matter what he does. He wrote, no intelligent person can defend this low-life fascist, this bankrupter of casinos, this failed seller of Trump steaks, Trump vodka, Trump water, etc. This man and his goon squad have failed upwards for decades and have fleeced the American people over and over. Wrote White, this professional golf cheat, this grifter, who has hundreds of thousands of deaths from his inaction of the pandemic on his hands. This man that the majority of the country somehow were fooled into supporting and voting into office through the flawed electoral college and their love of reality television stars being insulted by the actual White House that this particular con man leads is a badge of honor to me, because anyone who Trump supports and likes is a villain who gives nothing to their fellow man, only takes what can benefit themselves. And no, I am not a Democrat either. I am a human being raised in Detroit. I am an artist who has owned his own businesses like his own upholstery shop and recording label since he was 21 years old, who has enough street sense to know when a 3-card money dealer is a cheap grifter and a thief. I was raised to believe that we defeated fascism in World War II and that we would never allow it again in the world. I do not always state publicly my political opinions, and like anyone, I do not always know all of the facts. But when it comes to this man and this administration, I am not going to be like one of the silent minority of 1930s Germany. This man is a danger to not just America, but the entire world, and that is not an exaggeration. He is dismantling democracy and endangering the planet on a daily basis. And we all know at JW3 to announce that there must be no criticism of the president or that we are to stand by the president, right or wrong, is not only unpatriotic and servile, but is morally treasonable to the American public, is a quote from Teddy Roosevelt. Headlines: The New York Times, September 2nd, 2025. Air pollution from fossil fuel burning Exxon and California Spar in dueling lawsuits over plastics. The New York Times consumers 8 gifts that have delighted us lately. Reviews by Wirecutter consumers. Here are the 10 biggest U.S. lottery jackpots ever. The New York Times. Macho culture and the media. Hard-nosed sheriff who inspired Walking Tall movie killed his wife. Inquiry, says the New York Times. Excerpt edited by RAWSEP. Residents against would smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. August 31st, 2025. A rural Tennessee sheriff who was portrayed by Hollywood as a leader who had to bend the law in order to fight crime killed his wife 58 years ago. Prosecutors announced on Friday they said that they had amassed enough evidence against the Sheriff Buford Pusser, who served in McNairy County from 1964 to 70, to present an indictment to a grand jury in the killing of his wife Pauline Mullins Pusser, 33, who died in 1967. Though Sheriff Pusser died in a car crash 7 years after the death of his wife, prosecutors said it was critical to make public what they had learned, in part because the case inspired the Nixon-era law and order hit Walking Tall in 1973. The movie is set in a Tennessee town taken over by bootlegging, illegal gambling, and prostitution. It starred Joe Don Baker as Sheriff Pusser, a crusading official who cleaned up the streets with the help of a colossal baseball bat. Sheriff Pusser, at 6 foot 6 inches tall and 250 pounds, had been a wrestler known as Buford the Bull before becoming sheriff. According to Variety, Walking Tall was made for about $500,000 and earned more than $40 million worldwide. This case is not about tearing down a legend. District Attorney Mark Davidson of the Tennessee 25th Judicial District said in a news conference on Friday, it is about giving dignity and closure to Pauline and her family and ensuring that the truth is not buried with time. He said the truth matters, justice matters. Even 58 years later, Pauline deserves both medicine and science. Who am I without birth control? The New York Times. Must consumers. How Elon Musk is remaking Grok in his image. The New York Times. Nature pets the dog belonging to Theodore Kirk. Herbstreit makes ESPN cameo in the TCU blowout of North Carolina. The athletic Republicans. Crime festers in Republican states while their troops patrol Washington. The New York Times. Transportation affecting housing. RAWSEP. View unintended consequences from the article headline. It was supposed to connect segregated neighborhoods. Did it gentrify them? Instead, the New York Times. Trump actions to give Giuliani the Medal of Freedom out of nowhere. RAWSEP. View talk about chaos, macho wannabe culture, and the media. Trump defenders. From the article headline, Giuliani finds a home away from home in New Hampshire. The New York Times. Trump and Epstein fallout. House Oversight Committee is set to meet with accusers of Jeffrey Epstein. The New York Times. Brazil. Trump colleague, former president of Brazil, now on trial. How Jair Bolsonaro tried and failed to stage a coup in Brazil. The New York Times. Pakistan. First war then floods drive Pakistani families from their homes. The New York Times. RFK Junior COVID vaccine. CDC uncertainty upends COVID vaccine access at CVS and Walgreens. The New York Times. Music. Bruce Springsteen at Telluride. A Springsteen biopic means a Springsteen appearance. The New York Times. Trump tariffs. Court ruling against Trump tariffs after court defeat. Trump warns of economic chaos from loss of tariffs. The New York Times. Trump tariffs, a move to the U.S. to avoid tariffs. There are trade-offs. The New York Times. Mathematics. Eugenia Chung says you do not need to be good at math to enjoy it. The New York Times. Excerpt edited by RAWSEP. Residents against would smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. The latest book by Dr. Chung, Unequal the Math of When Things Do and Do Not Add Up, is all about equations and will be released in the United States on Tuesday, but it is more than a regurgitation of the many formulas you may recall learning in high school. In the book, Dr. Chung argues that an equation in its barest sense, a declaration that two things are equal, can be a profound statement on the choices we make about what is or is not the same. South Korea to China. Kim Jong-un heads to Beijing by train. The New York Times. Headlines. The Guardian. September 2nd, 2025. Air pollution mitigation funding cut off. The Guardian view on climate finance crumbling under a second Trump presidency editorial. The Guardian medicine and health swallowing correctly can save your life. Are you doing it right? Well, actually, the Guardian Trump actions alarm after FBI arrests U.S. Army veteran for conspiracy over protest against ICE Trump administration. The Guardian Trump allies RAWSEP. View film director conservative? Dystopian? From the article headline, Woody Allen says Donald Trump was a very good actor. Movies. The Guardian Trump economy gold price hits record high as investors seek safe haven gold. The Guardian Trump economy rising inequality is turning U.S. into an autocratic state. Billionaire warns U.S. economy. The Guardian Trump economy. Why the Trump undermining of U.S. statistics is so dangerous. Daniel Malinsky. The Guardian. Trump loses in court. RAWSEP. View. Democratic California Governor Gavin Newsom comments from the article headline, Trump loses again. California governor reacts to judge ruling that National Guard in L.A. violated federal law. Live excerpt edited by RAWSEP. Residents against would smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization. California Governor Gavin Newsom responded to a California federal court win that the Trump deployment of National Guard troops in Los Angeles this summer was illegal. Donald Trump loses again. Newsom posted on X. The courts agree his militarization of our streets and use of the military against U.S. citizens is illegal. United States Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett defends U.S. abortion ruling in memoir Respected Choice. Amy Coney Barrett. The Guardian. Australia medicine and psychology. Long COVID has more than 200 potential symptoms. Selective gullibility is one of mine. Australian lifestyle. The Guardian. United Kingdom consumers garbage dump. How do I know my life has gone wrong? Because I spend all my time at the tip. Zoe Williams. The Guardian. United Kingdom economy. Pressure rises on Reeves as government borrowing costs hit 27-year high. Economics. The Guardian. United Kingdom economic inequality. Record salaries for UK chief executives as pay rises for third year in a row. Executive pay and bonuses. The Guardian. United Kingdom consumers. The plant-based problem. Why vegan restaurants are closing or adding meat to the menu. Vegan food and drink. The Guardian. France housing celebrated in prison reviled rebuilt for non. Polion. The lost architect of France architecture. The Guardian. Ukraine sanatorium review. Ukraine health resort guests seek sanctuary amid shelling. Movies. The Guardian. Ukraine and Russia tainted love. How Ukrainians are ridding themselves of Russian language books. Ukraine. The Guardian. Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. Saying the quiet part out loud. Roar. Hi, I am Tiger. Our human asked us to get up from our naps and start Cat's corner strategy with Tiger and Leone. She gave us a list of internet allies which we will post for her here.
Hi, I am Leone. It is better for your mental fitness to go to these websites than to go to bro sites for advice. Substack letters from an American Heather Cox Richardson. Substack your local epidemiologist. The Midas Touch. The Guardian. The New York Times.
One introduction. RAWSEP view. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP view. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.